September 2025. The NHL preseason is starting. Teams are already gathering at their training camps. And in Edmonton, a shadow hangs over the Oilers. It's not just a hangover from the loss to the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup Final, but the uncertainty surrounding the most important name in modern hockey, Connor McDavid. The Oilers captain, the most dominant player of his generation, is entering the final stretch of his contract. He is still signed to the 2025-26 season, but if there is no extension, by July next year he will become an unrestricted free agent. And that, my friends, will be the biggest earthquake in the hockey world since the Wayne Gretzky trade. What once seemed like a mere formality after the elimination against the Panthers has turned into a saga. The summer passed, no contract was signed, and now, with training underway, the feeling grows that McDavid may be looking beyond Edmonton. He has already said himself he wants to win in Edmonton, but he also let slip a phrase that sets off alarm bells. The team needs to be a true Stanley Cup contender in 2025-26. Simple words, but full of meaning. If the Oilers can't prove they can deliver what McDavid wants, the story may be about to change. And this is where the speculation begins. If Connor McDavid really decides to seek a new destination, for franchises appear as the most likely scenarios, and the Leafs are one of them. Let's take a look. Destination 1, Los Angeles Kings. If you can't beat them, join them? It might sound strange, but it makes sense. Under McDavid's leadership, the Oilers eliminated the Kings for consecutive years in the playoffs. And yet, Los Angeles remains one of the strongest markets in the NHL. Despite still playing at a high level, imagine the impact represents a short-term, the greatest player in the world moving to the City of Stars, to the same team that once welcomed Wayne Gretzky in the 1980s. The comparison would be inevitable. Gretzky transformed the hockey market in the United States. McDavid could be responsible for a second revolution. Tactically, McDavid's arrival would turn the Kings into immediate contenders. He could share the ice with Quinton Byfield, a young player with enormous potential, and Kevin Fiala, one of the league's most creative forwards. And with Kopitar nearing the end of his career, McDavid would naturally assume the leadership role, a perfect transition between eras. There's also the lifestyle factor. Los Angeles offers luxuries and opportunities few hockey cities can match. For McDavid, who already carries so much weight off the ice, it would be a tempting stage. Destination 2, New York Rangers. From Hollywood glamour to the world capital of media, if McDavid chose the Rangers, he wouldn't just play in the legendary Madison Square Garden. He'd live under the brightest spotlight in sports. The Rangers are coming off a frustrating 2024-25 season, but the franchise is historically competitive and attractive. Many players love the idea of living in New York, and McDavid would be no exception. The key here is cap space. Artemi Panarin is entering the final year of his contract, and if there's any sign of interest from McDavid, the Rangers wouldn't hesitate to move on from him to open room. It's a risky move, but what GM would think twice about swapping Panarin for McDavid? On the ice, McDavid could join Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad, and Adam Fox, forming a core capable of putting the Rangers back on top of the Eastern Conference. A power play with McDavid and Fox would be simply devastating. And, of course, there's a way to the city. McDavid wouldn't just be a hockey player. He'd be a global celebrity. Destination 3, Detroit Red Wings. Now let's talk about the most surprising destination, the Detroit Red Wings. At first glance, it may seem unlikely. After all, the Red Wings haven't made the playoffs since 2017. But that's the point. McDavid could be the one to change that. Detroit still sells itself as Hockey Town, and even in a rebuild, they have good pieces. What they lack is an unquestionable superstar, a player who can tip the scales by himself. And McDavid, of course, is that player. Under Steve Yzerman's leadership, the project has taken longer than expected, and the fans' patience is wearing thin. McDavid's arrival will be the shock the franchise needs, and could even save Yzerman's job as GM. It would be a unique storyline. McDavid, tired of not winning the Stanley Cup in Edmonton, decides to write his legacy in Detroit, not only in the playoff drought, but also leading the Red Wings back to glory. And let's be honest, nothing impacted a player's career more than transforming a forgotten team into a champion. Destination 4, Toronto Maple Leafs. And now we arrive at the most anticipated point. The destination that divides opinions but is impossible to ignore. The Toronto Maple Leafs. For you, Leafs fans, this is not just speculation. It's a dream that has been nurtured for years. Connor McDavid was born and raised in Ontario. Since childhood, he was a Maple Leafs fan. That emotional connection has always been there, and now, with the real possibility of him becoming a free agent, the dream feels closer than ever. With Mitch Marner's departure, Toronto finally cleared cap space, and Brad Treliving, the GM, has already shown a willingness to make bold moves. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say he would make any sacrifice necessary to bring McDavid home. And here, Leafs fans, imagination comes to life. McDavid and Austin Matthews sharing the ice. Two offensive forces capable of deciding any game, any series, against any opponent. Matthews, the lethal finisher, ready to receive impossible passes from McDavid. Nylander, taking advantage of the space created. Tavares, now the veteran leader, stepping into a secondary role without the pressure of carrying the team. Tactically, it would be a perfect fit. McDavid can play center, but he can also line up as a winger, opening up power play variations that would leave opponents helpless. An attack combining Matthews and McDavid would be simply unstoppable. But it's not just about tactics. It's about history. Toronto hasn't won a Stanley Cup since 1967. More than 5 decades of waiting, frustration, renewed and broken hopes. Seeing McDavid lift the cup in blue and white wouldn't just be the end of a drought. It would be the greatest moment in recent NHL history. And think about the legacy. McDavid already has plenty of individual awards, already compared to Gretzky and Lemieux in terms of statistical impact, but he lacks the Stanley Cup. If he were to win it in Toronto, the conversation about his place in hockey history would change forever. For the fans, the message would be clear. The prodigal son has returned home to fulfill his destiny. The coming months would define much more than the future of one franchise. They would define the direction of the entire NHL. If the Oilers manage to re-sign McDavid, they'll keep alive the hope that Edmonton can climb back to the top. But if they can't, then Los Angeles, New York, Detroit, and especially Toronto will be waiting with open arms. And you, Leafs fans, need to be ready. Because if this dream becomes reality, if Connor McDavid wears blue and white, it won't just be another signing. It will be a moment that enters hockey eternity. Connor McDavid, the greatest talent of the modern era, the future of hockey, the player who can transform the destiny of an entire franchise. And maybe very soon, the man who finally brings the Stanley Cup back to Toronto.